All right, I'll call our meeting to order. Welcome members of council, administration, and certainly those from the comforts of home. Welcome to our public meeting. And we did the land acknowledgement in a previous meeting, so we'll dispense with that this afternoon. To the members, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this afternoon? I hear none, so we'll have that duly noted. Thank you. The introduction of our and purpose of our meeting today is to hear public comment on the zoning bylaw amendment application for 13931 Riverside Drive. The purpose of the application is to amend zoning bylaw 2065 by rezoning the subject property from residential type 2 zone R2 to a site specific residential type 2 zone R2-8 to facilitate the construction of a 1-story 2-unit dwelling, semi-detached dwelling, and establish site specific lot provisions. And so with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Jeffries, and if there's anything else you want to add to the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. If we could go to attachment 1, please. So the applicant's LJB Family Holdings own a 0.29 acre residential lot with 90 feet of frontage that's outlined in red on the screen. It's on the south side of Riverside Drive, just east of Arlington Boulevard, and it has a municipal address of 13931 Riverside. It's currently occupied by a single unit dwelling, and the applicants, who are represented tonight by Marianne Kiefner, are hoping to rezone the property from residential type 2 R2 zone to a site specific residential type 2 R2-8 zone. And that R2-8 zone would permit a 1-story 2-unit dwelling, and also, as the mayor noted, establish site specific lot provisions. It would also allow for the future severance of this lot such that each of those units of the 2-unit dwelling would be on its own lot and could be owned separately. Excuse me. If we could go to attachment 2, please. So this attachment shows the concept for the proposed lot. You can see each unit is roughly 2,600 square feet in area and will have its own access from Riverside Drive. The R2 zone that currently applies to the property and allows for only single unit dwellings has yard that would be met by this proposal. So this 2-unit dwelling would meet all the other provisions with respect to yard, interior side yard, rear yard, and front yard. It's necessary to permit a smaller lot frontage and to allow for freehold ownership of a 2-unit dwelling. Attachment 3 is an architectural rendering of the proposed dwelling. And as you can see, it has the appearance of a single unit dwelling because one of the garage on the eastern unit is accessed from the side, so it's not visible from the front. So they were sensitive to trying to integrate it into the existing character of the area, which is predominantly single unit dwellings. And on that note, attachment 4 shows the surrounding land uses. Everything in yellow represents single unit, low density residential dwellings. The red block on the southwest corner of Arlington and Riverside Drive is the commercial plaza, to the west of which is a private school, and to the south of that private school is a church. So there's a bit of a mixed use node just to the west of the subject property. The provincial policy statement and the county official plan encourage this type of residential intensification. For reasons of utilizing the existing municipal infrastructure more efficiently, for providing a range and mix of housing that's necessary, and we've heard a lot about that recently from the province, and just to have more compact communities so that our communities aren't expanding prematurely into the surrounding agricultural natural heritage lands. This direction from the provincial policy statement is also repeated in the county official plan and in our town's official plan. Our town encourages intensification, but it does establish that in stable residential areas like this, you have to have regard to the surrounding area and the context, and you must address the compatibility policies that are contained in subsection 3.18 of the plan. And those include things such as will it result in shadowing, intrusive overlook, traffic issues, will there be noise? And we've taken a look at all the issues to be addressed in that section. And we've concluded that we don't have any concerns with respect to the potential for impact from this proposed 2-unit dwelling. Although the purpose of tonight's meeting is, of course, to hear from any interested residents and other stakeholders and to assess their comments in the context of this proposal. And at the end of this meeting, Mr. Mayor, we will either do a follow-up report to council if we can't address their questions and comments tonight, or we will come back with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment if we're able to address to council satisfaction any of the concerns raised. So those are my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have tonight.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jeffries. At this moment, any questions or comments to Mr. Jeffries? If not, I'll take this opportunity now to open it up to our delegations. First on the docket this evening is, I believe, Mr. Rick Babister, who's the applicant, and I believe there's also there's 4, I think, from the same group. I don't know who's going to be speaking or if they're all speaking, but I'll certainly open it up for Mr. Babister. Oh, Mr. Babister's not here. Okay, then next then on there, Mr. Baguette, the president of SPD Construction.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Just in regards to obviously the land shortages that are going on currently, and the future development of 10,000 houses having to come to Windsor Essex County, we thought that this would be a good opportunity to bring a nice piece of parcel to the town of Tecumseh.
Okay. All right, is there also Marianne Kiefner, who's also with the group, and Nicole Shirachi? I don't know if there's further comments that they want to bring forward.
Hello, good evening. It's Marianne Kiefner. I just wanted to confirm that the report submitted by administration, we agree with that full force. And in reading through some of the objections to the proposal, it's clear that what some of the objectors are indicating is that they like the idea, they understand the provincial policy, but they don't want the intensification or the diversification to be within their area. And actually, those kind of comments are exactly contrary to what the provincial policy says. It indicates that that you have to intensify within settlement areas, which this clearly is. It's a residential area. You have to integrate with compatible proposals, other types of residential dwellings. So in this case, a semi-detached dwelling being introduced into a single family zoned area is absolutely in accordance with everything that the PPSA is supporting and pushing. And it's also in accordance with the Essex County OP and the Tecumseh OP, which all reiterate those proposals. And on top of all that, as far as integration goes, it's a wonderful, beautiful looking dwelling, and looks like a single family dwelling as opposed to anything different. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And any further comments? I see on the screen, Ms. Sarowski.
I have nothing to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Then I'll move on to our next delegation, Ms. Arla Peters. one of the residents.
Good day. So my name is Arla Peters, and I do reside at 13934 Riverside Drive East, directly across from the proposed development at 13931. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words on behalf of my family and many of our neighbors. In a nutshell, we are all opposed to this proposed bylaw amendment to allow a semi-detached dwelling in this neighborhood, and particularly on Riverside Drive in Tecumseh. I would like to note that the petition that you see was gathered by one neighbor during like a 2-hour time period and during inclement weather, with many residents away. There likely would have been an even far greater number of signatures on that petition. It was just getting a sense of how people felt. Why are we all opposed? Because we all believe that this will adversely affect the value of our investment in our properties, our homes, as it is not, in our estimation, the appropriate location for this type of development, notwithstanding the policy statements. I think that it still has to be within the character of this neighborhood, and we don't believe it is, even though the renderings certainly look lovely. I won't deny that. That's not really our issue at this point. It just seems that this would change the character of our neighborhood and set an irreversible precedent that will essentially give carte blanche to all future developments in this neighborhood. And is that what we want for Tecumseh on Riverside Drive? The official plan refers to well-planned intensification. Is this development well-planned for the benefit of the community of primarily larger single-unit homes on primarily larger lots? We have concerns. Taking a 90-foot lot and dividing it in half, 46 and 44 feet, is not in character with the surrounding community. I have learned a lot in the last few days as I have tried to understand the province, county, and town new policy statements regarding intensifications, and I likely have only scratched the surface of what I wish I knew a lot more about. However, I can only assume that the town is required to hold these meetings because it is hopefully not a done deal, but because we are still able to review and assess what is in the best interest of the whole community. We are still able to say no in the circumstance. I just want to ensure and be assured that the town has taken everything into account that it should when making this decision. These questions were noted in our letter, like, what is the plan? And I don't mean the official plan, but does the town support the construction of semi-detached homes in all areas of Tecumseh with property frontages of less than 50 feet? What is your assessment of the potential negative impacts this decision will have on the surrounding properties and all properties along Riverside Drive? In the opinion of this council, is it in the best interest of Tecumseh to allow multi-unit dwellings all along Riverside Drive, or is it best to maintain the current and past plan that promoted larger dwellings of more significant market value by virtue of the minimum 75-foot frontage in the current zoning bylaw? Because that is what will happen. A 100-foot lot will become available along the drive. A developer will outbid, and next thing you know, another semi-detached or maybe something even more uncharacteristic will arise. We are not against well-planned multi-unit dwellings. We have many in our community. The Lakewood development is impressive. Village Grove is very nice, to name just a few. We just do not believe that this development is well planned from the perspective of the surrounding community. And as an aside, the owners have thus far not proven to be very good neighbors in respect of their property and the property of their neighbors. Example, not even a leaf was picked up on their tree lot, left for them to eventually blow away and for other more caring neighbors to have to deal with. So there's not been a lot of trust established. So in closing, please take the time needed. Is this proposal the right decision for this neighborhood for Tecumseh? We, the residents living here, have concerns. Please say no. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Peters. Do you want to reserve questions till we get them all? Okay. I believe the next resident is Christina and Matthew Lefkowski, also residents of Riverside Drive.
Hey, everybody, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
It's a tough person to go after. Mrs. Peters, you said everything exactly how I would have said it. This is a long-standing community that's been here and had very large properties that have kind of the reason why we moved here. We're a younger couple that have been here now for about 15 years. And we chose to do so because of the size of the property, because of the dwellings that are here, because that this edge of Riverside is a gem. And everything that Ms. Peters is exactly what I would have reiterated, probably not so eloquently. I stand completely against this. I think it is a slippery slope. And I think that we are in need for multi-unit dwellings. And I think that as our population grows, we do need to continue, to have efforts to make sure that everybody has great places to live. But this is a very old community. Some of you may even remember back in the day when we had our own police force in this community. And there's been lots of concessions into town as Tecumseh for all of these different things. But starting with a semi-detached unit that would be built, I think is a travesty to Riverside Drive, especially at the end of this stretch. And as she said, I'm also not against multi-unit dwellings. And I hate to be more candid about this, but not in our area. This is a very small area. A lot of our neighbors know each other. Ms. Peters, I'd love to sign this petition. I'd love to get my parents across the street to sign the petition. This is something that we see happening in a lot of places. And I completely understand. I see Edgewater getting divided up into smaller pieces. I personally have someone who lived on Edgewater and had a large property. And the moment he sold it, it was divided in two. And this does create a different type of a problem. And when we start seeing this stuff happen, it'll continue to happen. And the moment that it does, you're absolutely right, Ms. Peters, you will see this across the street on the water. We will see this up and down our roads. And we have to have, large consideration to where it goes. And the renderings are beautiful. I think the renderings look great. And it was actually the first time that I've seen the renderings. Renderings are also something architects come up with, and builders do not follow through with them to a T. Working with enough architects and builders both alongside. I mean, we see this, the renderings don't usually end up being what they are, but regardless, I really don't think this is something my family looks forward to in any shape or form. And like I said, Ms. Peters, I'd love to sign that petition, and I'm sure I can get even more people on it, because I don't see any of our neighbors that have talked about this seeing it as a positive thing inside of our community. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. I think that's it in terms of delegations. Oh, okay. Nicole, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm with the Bungalow Builders. We are going to be building this house as per the renderings. It's going to look like one complete front of the house with two separate driveways, but the front's going to be, it's going to look like one house, not two. I'm building it for my parents, so I can assure you it's going to look like that. If you don't believe the builder, I'm just reassuring you that we're not changing the renderings.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments at this stage here? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all the delegations. I appreciate the comments received. It is challenging when we do get these applications as a municipality. We're kind of have to find the balancing act between, the demands that are out there, and diversity is one thing that I keep hearing, especially in the town of Tecumseh. And with the Bill 23, build more homes faster, with the housing crisis in the province that everybody talks about, municipalities are looking, developers are looking, and you're right, Mrs. Peters, you're gonna see more of these. Again, and in this particular situation, if you see the renderings, it does do its best in terms of conform, but moving forward, I think as a municipality, we're going to see more and more of these type of applications and lot severances to address the housing shortage, the housing crisis that we're all experiencing. It's more of a comment more than anything, but I do appreciate you taking the time tonight to provide input to allow council for further deliberation. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Councillor Tonio.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Jeffries. Just to confirm, so the application, we're going from a low density single unit to a low density 2-unit building. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So we're adding another homeowner to the property with a separate building, not like an additional residential unit where it would just be added on to the home and all the services would be attached to that home. This is 2 different homes designed for 2 different families type of thing, correct?
It's two different units within the same building, essentially. So it's a semi-detached unit is what it's often referred to as. In the St. Clair Beach zoning bylaw, it's called a 2-unit dwelling. But it's divided, perpendicularly, and there'd be 1 unit on one half of the lot and then another unit on the other half of the lot, and they can both be owned separately. The difference between that situation and an ARU is that an ARU would be a rental unit. So it's very similar in terms of appearance. It could be very similar in terms of appearance to an ARU in addition to a principal dwelling. But in this case, the lot will be able to be divided and each unit will be able to be owned separately.
And sold separately, everything like that. Okay, thank you for just clarifying. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Higginson.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to verify in some of the correspondence that came in about suitability and compatibility. And I just wanted to verify with you, Mr. Jeffries, that you mentioned 3.18 in our official plan. Does this unit seem to, in the terms that we classify compatibility with the neighborhood, does it conform within those, the way we interpret them in the official plan?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it absolutely does. There are a number of criteria that we're told to look at through this policy. We've gone through each of those, and I mentioned some of them in my opening remarks. But in every instance, we feel that it meets the criteria for compatibility.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to establish the kind of baseline on which we use the terms compatibility for the neighborhoods and conforming to what's happening in those neighborhoods, that we have an appreciation of the baseline of the language that we're using for that. So if this, when this moves forward, we can use that as a baseline, both for us in this room and for the community as well.
Okay, thank you. I noticed, Ms. Peters, your hand is up, but at this stage of the meeting, it's not a debate with council. If there's something that you want to add that is additional information, I'll stretch it and I'll allow it, but it's just to on the procedural bylaw. Right now, we're at the stage where discussions are with members of council.
Okay, it was more a question, but I can defer on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you got a question. Yeah.
Well, it's in response to it really comes down to the question of, is there any allowance for specific neighborhoods to not be included and allow for multi-unit dwellings, or is every area of this province open for that to happen? Like, is there any why are we even discussing this? And why haven't we torn the bylaws down from the website or put a big banner on them to say, beware, these are not valid any longer? If that's the case, like, is there any room? Because if you want to preserve any neighborhood here, this is, in my view, and I hate to say it because it sounds presumptuous, but this is the neighborhood that I believe the town of Tecumseh wants to preserve. And I know that doesn't sound well, but I don't know if that's in consideration or if there's even the ability to have that in consideration.
I think I'll certainly defer to planning, on your question there, but there's no doubt that with the new Bill 23 and in terms of municipal affairs and housing and building new homes, there's certainly amendments that have been made in terms of the where, the when, the how the homes are being built, and in particular, and so it's it is kind of a moving target at this stage here, and certainly in those terms. But I think the question that was just asked earlier by Councillor Higginson, it kind of sets the the base, the benchmark in terms of defining, the what is classified as compatible. But the experts, we have, we have our planning department here, so I'll certainly defer to them in those terms.
So there's been any assessment that's not felt that this would have any negative impact on the value of the residents in this area? I mean, I understand that particular development and the renderings look lovely, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to have parents in there and that it will look that way. That will certainly, so it's not about, I'm about the precedent, and are we ready for that to be set here?
Okay, I'll certainly defer that to Mr. Jeffries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Mayor. And there's this explanation could go on for a long time, but I will try to keep it within reason. There's been a paradigm shift in how we build our communities that's been ongoing for some time now. And Bill 23 is just the latest chapter, and it's emphasizing that we need to do something. The status quo before wasn't working as well as it should in terms of providing housing and making housing affordable. So they've taken what some would consider some drastic measures. But even before that, when we were preparing our new official plan, which took place over a number of years, there were a number of background studies, there were a number of opportunities for the community to come out and have it say with respect to how it wants the community to develop and grow over time. And there was one paper in particular that dealt with housing, and it talked about intensification, and it stipulated that intensification should take place in fully serviced urban areas such as this. And it also talked about being along transit routes, having commercial areas near it, community facilities near it. And these are all things that this subject property has. So it is a good candidate for intensification. In fact, I would argue that most of our community is good for intensification. I don't think it's going to happen at the level that some people fear will happen, but it's also not something that should be feared if it's done with sensitivity. And this proposal is a perfect example of that. It's financially, economically, and socially important to do this. So no, we didn't take a look at every single area of the municipality and say this area is appropriate for intensification and this area isn't appropriate, because we set up our official plan with this test that it has to meet through subsection 318, the compatibility criteria. And there are a number of other policies that have to be addressed as well. And as we noted in our report, we feel that this application meets those policies. And on the issue of compatibility, this council has heard both Brian and I say this before. Compatibility doesn't mean the same as. It means can coexist harmoniously. And we feel that there's no reason that this building can't.
You know, a great example of that is Lakewood. And when you look at, they got multi-res townhomes and it mixed with single family homes. And there has not been any devaluation or anything of homes, you know, in that area. And so you can see that there's been a huge integration of a variety of diverse homes in that particular area. Okay, members of council, any further questions or so any comments to admin and or any of our delegates? Okay, none at this stage. Then I will then again to those in the audience, there's no decisions tonight. Obviously, there's still some work to be done by administration prior to this coming back to council. Okay. Okay, members of council, we have items
Mr.
of
Mayor?
information.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know and council know that we will try to have a report before it at the next meeting summarizing the results of this public meeting and bringing forward a recommendation on the zoning. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll make sure that information that's coming before us as well to let our delegations know. Okay, with that, we have communications. We have 9 pieces of communication. If I get a motion to receive, thank you, Councillor Tonio, Councillor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Also, on the report, DS 2023, the ZBA scheduling of a public meeting and that the recommendation. Could I have a motion to receive it? Deputy Mayor Bichetti, Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And with that, members of council, admin, and certainly our delegation, adjournment is now in order. And before we do that, I certainly want to thank our delegations that were here this afternoon and who participated in the meeting. And so again, I believe would be the March 14th meeting, and we'll make sure that the delegation are aware of the information that will be brought forward. So with that, adjournment's in order. Councillor Tonio and Councillor Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.